and welcome to 5225, 52 Weeks of Loving Movies, week 21. This week we are talking about non-superhero comic book movies. Last week we covered superhero movies, and this week I wanted to cover a different type of comic book movie, not necessarily in the superhero genre. You know, I talked about it a bit last week, but like comic books have always been a pretty big part of my life, and I actually didn't know for a while that comic books existed that weren't superhero comics. I had read, things like Archie and stuff like that, but to me that felt like something different. It didn't feel like a comic book, because comic books were about superheroes. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I was like, oh wait, they make comic books of other types, not just superheroes, and opened up a world of possibilities for me. But let's leave my history for now, and let's just jump into our first movie this week, which was Sin City, which is based on a graphic novel series by Frank Miller. Now, I have read and loved the Sin City series, and I'm a big fan of it. And this movie, Sin City from 2005, is the best page-to-screen adaptation I've ever seen of any medium, anything that any sort origin source. And the reason is because when Robert Rodriguez decided to make this movie, he purposely staged it based on the panels from the comic book because they were so cinematically drawn. An interesting little fact about this movie is that Robert Rodriguez actually had to quit the Directors Guild of America because of this movie, because he wanted to credit Frank Miller as one of the directors, because so much of it was directly from the page, and so much of it was exactly as he had drawn it and as it had been envisioned in the graphic novels, that he and they wouldn't allow that, so he had to quit that so he could credit him as one of the directors. Quentin Tarantino also has a directing credit on this as a special guest director, because he does direct the Jackie Boy as the Pez dispenser scene in the car. But the film as a whole is one that I absolutely love. And, I said I love the graphic novel series, and it is extremely close to the source material, down to the frames. But I think that this was something that we hadn't really seen at the time in 2005. The visual style of we had seen people take I will say similar swings in terms of use of light and shadow and color and stuff like that, but I would posit never to this degree, and that's one of the things that made this so interesting when it first came out, because number one, if you're a fan of that graphic novel, it looks so much like it and it feels so much like it, and it follows the exact same beats. But even if you're not a fan of the comic book series, it's just visually stunning, and it's a style that doesn't alienate the general audience, which is a feat unto itself. If you're going to go outside of the box, it's difficult to do that and not alienate the non-art crowd, or to not alienate people who don't know the comic book. And this is one thing that it was able to accomplish, which I think is a feat unto itself. Sin City, the first Sin City movie, is based on 3 of the first 4 Sin City graphic novels, which were called The Hard Goodbye, The Big Fat Kill, and That Yellow Bastard. And those 3 books, I think, was the right move to film those and to leave out A Dame to Kill For, because you get everything you need from A Dame to Kill For in The Big Fat Kill, and it doesn't bog it down with that backstory, because it's well executed enough that you don't really need that. And these 3 stories happen to introduce some very, very interesting characters that look incredible on screen, and they're very fun to watch. Marv, Mickey Rourke, it's probably my favorite Mickey Rourke performance. He was the exact right person for this. He played it perfectly. I absolutely love his role in this. Say what you will about him today as a person, and I'm sure I could say some things about him as a person today, but he has some really great performances under his belt, specifically after Sin City, because Sin City pretty much brought him back into prominence, and then he had a few really good roles after this. But for me, this is my favorite of his. Hardigan, Bruce Willis. I love a lot of Bruce Willis movies. I haven't always been a fan of him as an actor. I think was the perfect choice as Hardigan. I think he is incredible. Clive Owen, who unfortunately doesn't have the career that he had back in 2005 when this was made. We really need to bring Clive Owen back into prominence, which I know he's still working, but he had a lot of potential, and it's a shame that he kind of faded into the background. But Benicio del Toro, even Jessica Alba, who honestly I don't think is a very good actor, which, you know, she does all right. I'm glad that she's around, and I don't wish to disparage her career or anything like that. That's not at all what I'm saying. But she has a presence in this film that I think stacks among the best of what she has offered in the past. And Rosario Dawson is always just really great. Elijah Wood doesn't even talk in this movie. You barely see his face most of the time because it's silhouetted with those really great shots of the glasses and the reflection of the glasses. But he's, for what you can see of him, is also really, really great. But outside of that, it's just a movie that is, number one, extremely watchable. Number two, brings something to the table outside of just the premise. But neo-noirs and action movies in general can rest on their laurels pretty easily, and because the thing that they offer is exciting enough that they don't necessarily need to offer anything outside of their genre or the premise itself. And I think this one offers a lot. I think there are many, many layers to what makes this movie great. I've called it a near masterpiece. I'll probably continue to call it a near masterpiece. I'm sure that I could finagle my way into calling it a masterpiece because it's very, very close. It's just a very watchable and entertaining and beautiful piece of art. Frank Miller has always been one of the trinity of comic book people for me, and he's said and done some things in the past that have been uncool, but number one, he's actually, as a person, is demonstrably able to change. He has shown that he is able to change. He has looked back on things that he's done and said I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. Here's kind of where my brain was at the time, which I think is extremely admirable. I think more people should do that. I think people should own that they have grown and that they have changed. I think that people don't do that enough. People try to hide what it was, what they said and did in the past, and which is understandable. Sometimes you just don't want to deal with the drama of that or whatever. But I think there are a lot of people who will try to pretend like they were never a certain type of person. And of course, we grow, we change, we're people. I think that it's important to allow people to change, and to, when they do and when they accept that, to accept that they have done that. But I'm going to move on from Sin City, but we're going right back to Sin City because we're going to talk about Sin City: A Dame to Kill For, which is the second graphic novel from the Sin City series, and the one that I had just said was good to cut out of the original. This was my first time watch. I actually, despite how much I love the first one, it actually wasn't chopping at the bit to to go watch this one. Number one, because I just heard it wasn't very good, but also it's 2014. My middleest son was born that year, so I already had a young child and then now a new baby. So 2014, a lot of the time I didn't get to see all the movies that I wanted to watch. Same happened in 2011 when my first son was born, and in between there. So I just missed it, and I never got back around to it. And so I decided, hey, this is a good opportunity to go check this out. And while I don't think it's a total waste of time, there's people who would tell you it's a huge waste of time. I don't think it is. I think that it is watchable, and it does have that same style, which we loved from the first one. But it is a huge step down, and and there's some really cool sequences, and there's some really cool visual stuff in this film that I think does really work. But it's a lot of it is just retreads or missteps, retreads of the original, missteps on adaptation of the source material. And I know that they were planning on a third one, and so that's why they were leaving some of the graphic novel stuff to be able to use in a future installment. Because here's the thing, they did in the first one, they did 3 graphic novels and combined them to make Sin City. This one, they did A Dame to Kill For, the second graphic novel. They used one of the one-shots from the Booze, Broads, and Bullets series, and then they created 2 other sequences, 3 really. They one sequence that they cut into 2 parts, and then a third sequence that were brand new. They were not from the original, and Frank Miller had a lot more to do with this one. He actually was active in directing, and he wrote it. But I think there was a lot of trying to recapture a magic that they were never going to be able to recapture, because there was something new and exciting about the first one, and the second one just didn't have that because it was no longer new, and the excitement was gone from it. And maybe they always would have, no matter what they did with it, they always would have had a problem with a sequel. And to be fair, I understand why they wanted to go after the sequel, and they wanted to adapt more of them and continue that franchise. But truth be told, Sin City works so well as a standalone, it probably should have stayed a standalone. But I'm not going to begrudge them. I think that they saw an opportunity and took it. Unfortunately, it did not pan out for them. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is an actor that I really, really love, is in this one, and I think he's really great. He is one of the highlights for me on this. Josh Brolin plays Dwight with his original face, because this takes place before the big fat kill, because that was Clive Owen's character after he got the new face. This is him before the new face. And then he actually gets the new face in this movie. I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for anybody, but he does get the new face in this movie. Unfortunately, it's just Josh Brolin's face with a little bit of makeup on it and not Clive Owen's. It would have been so cool if it had been Clive Owen's face, but apparently there were scheduling conflicts with his TV series, The Nick, and he wasn't able to come back for it. So that kind of sucks. It does create a continuity issue, which is fine. Continuity is what it is, and each movie should stand on their own anyway. So we don't necessarily need that continuity through there, but it just would have been really cool. I think the stories were well told enough. It's just the problem is that they were trying too hard to recapture that lightning in a bottle, and it did not feel fresh or new, and it felt mostly like a retread of the first one. So it did not work super well for me. And it's not to say I won't watch it again, because I do think it's cool enough for me to revisit in the future, especially after I watch the first one again. I'll probably want to retread or revisit this one again later. But it is not for me a very good film. But I'm going to move on from that to the first graphic novel movie, the first non-superhero comic book movie I ever watched, or at least that I ever knew that I had watched. The first time that I knew that something was not based on that was based on a comic book that was not a superhero. And that was Ghost World from 2001. I loved this movie when it came out in 2001. The main reason is because I'm about the same age as the girls are depicted in there. In fact, I'm just a little bit older than Scarlett Johansson, just by like a month and a half. But like so I am the same age as her, and I was just a little bit younger than what they are depicted as in this film. But it wasn't just the ages, the similar ages. I was also too cynical for my own good back then, and I was also striving to be different, to be different and unique. And unfortunately, that's the same thing everybody was doing. So I was the same kind of different as everyone else. There are some things on the rewatch that, first of all, I will say I still really like this movie. It doesn't hit for me as well as it did back then, and I think that's understandable. I think that because I don't relate to it quite as well as I did back then, it is not going to work on that level. As a film, I still think it's very well done, and I think it's a really great movie. So it does still work on that level. It just doesn't work as well as it did way back then. On rewatch, there are some things that I noticed that just with time and having grown, I have noticed about it. Now, I love coming of age movies, and this is a coming of age movie. It's one of my favorite subgenres of movies, coming of age. This is a coming of age movie, and one thing I notice as I'm going through it is as I'm watching it is some of the little plot points that are extremely true of post high school life, even into your adulthood. Things like that the girls grow apart and they drift apart, and it's not just that they drift apart, but that like Enid has found something else that is taking her focus, and it is taking away time from her best friend Rebecca. And when she realizes that this is happening, she moves on and goes on with her own life, almost to the point where it feels like it can feel like a weight has been lifted. And that's kind of what the impression that I get from that, almost like she is no longer bogged down by this friendship. And not to say that that during the friendship she necessarily felt that way, but now that she's free of it, there is a freedom there that comes with it. And I understand that. I've been there. I've been the friend who finds that freedom. I've been the friend that people have been gotten free of, and that is, that's a hard thing to really know and to be, but it is understandable because, again, I've been there too. I've been on the other side, so I certainly understand it. It's actually one of my biggest fears in the world, that my friends will one day realize that they could be free of me, and that I'm just this weight around their neck. It's a huge fear of mine. If you're watching this, any of my close friends, I love you, and please don't drop me. But if you do and you find that freedom, I'll eventually understand, but I'll be really, really sad. So I hope that I'm not a burden or a weight around your neck. I also find that I relate to Seymour more now than I do to Enid. Back then, I felt like I related a lot to Enid, but again, similar age, and I was striving for that uniqueness. Seymour, played by Steve Buscemi, who's great in this movie. It's the reason I actually watched it originally, because I was a Steve Buscemi fan back then and still am. But Seymour has found his niche, has found that thing that makes him different and unique, and he is living in it. And that's where I am now. Of course, I'm a similar age to what he would have been back then now. So it makes sense that I would also be there. But I do relate to that character a lot because, he knows who he is and he knows what he likes. And he even though these things are coming into his life that's kind of upsetting that balance for him, he still is who he is, and he doesn't change who he is through the midst of this. And once you find that thing, that thing that is you, that thing that makes you who you are, which is something we search for when we're, teenagers and young adults. And then eventually one day we find it. When you find that thing, things coming in to disrupt that can feel like a weight, also can feel like this inconvenience. And they do explore that as well. But I love the way that Seymour handles it in this film, and I completely relate to that character, or relate to him more than I do to Enid. They're not everything in this is not everything Seymour does is things that I would do or anything like that, and there are questionable things, but for the most part, I definitely feel more like a Seymour than an Enid, which is the opposite of how I felt back when it came out. As I said, I do think this is a fun, charming little black comedy, and I do think it's a really great movie that I do still enjoy. But my just feelings on it have changed in the 24 years since I first saw it, just as my life has changed, just like the lives in these characters in this movie have changed. So I think that the fact that my life has changed is actually a testament to this movie and a testament to what it's actually saying, and proves it right. This movie right. But overall, I had a really great time revisiting an old favorite. But I'm going to leave that right there for now. And we're going to move on to the last movie. I only got a chance to watch 4 movies this week. I will say that there were 2 others that I really wanted to get to. I just didn't have the time. I wanted to watch Road to Perdition, which I haven't seen, but is based on a comic book. And I wanted to watch Snowpiercer because I've mentioned, I'm sure several times here, because I've covered him a couple times. I'm a big fan of Bong Joon-ho. A huge Bong Joon-ho fan, and that's one of his more popular movies, and just a really great film, because personally I think all of his films are great. Yes, I love Mickey 17. It's my favorite film of the year so far. I know that's not true for everyone. Don't at me. Actually do in the comments. Tell me how I'm wrong. But that's just for engagement. Please don't hurt my feelings. I didn't get around to those, but there are going to be opportunities for those 2 movies on future weeks. But that's not why I didn't do it. I didn't do it because I just didn't have time. But I'm going to move on to my last movie, which is A History of Violence, based on a graphic novel by John Wagner and Vince Locke. I forgot to mention Ghost World is based on a graphic novel by Daniel Clowes. I apologize to Daniel Clowes for not mentioning during that, but I mentioned him here during a portion that is not about his movie or his graphic novel. But A History of Violence was a complete surprise to me when I saw it originally. Now, when I say complete surprise, it was David Cronenberg. I'd seen plenty of David Cronenberg movies, but I had this idea of what to expect from David Cronenberg. It starred Viggo Mortensen. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so and I have been following everything he had done post Lord of the Rings since then, this was just a couple years after Lord of the Rings ended, but this was his first great movie after Lord of the Rings. There's a couple others that he was in after Lord of the Rings that I thought were good. This was, to me, his first great movie that I was like, okay, yes. But when I originally had seen this in the theater, there were things that I expected from it. I expected to be a lot more body horror because it was David Cronenberg. I expected to be a lot more violent because the name is A History of Violence. But it wasn't those things. What it was this really good, almost sweet story about this man and his family and the love he has for his family and how he's keeping his family together, how, the love that this family shares together, and kind of the struggles you go through as a normal family. And then it turns into this, well, is he who he says he is? If you've never seen A History of Violence, I don't want to spoil it any further, because I think that it's important to not know everything about this movie. But there's that center question of who is he? And I think that Viggo Mortensen plays that so well. There are, because regardless of who he is, we all have different sides of our personality and of who we are. And Viggo Mortensen navigates that so well. When he's the coffee shop, just a guy in a coffee shop, he has a certain way about him. When he is a family man with his family, you really feel and believe that. When he's trying to protect his family, he is he is clearly the protector. He shows up in that way. There's so many layers to his performance that I just absolutely love. I'm a fan of his, obviously. I love Viggo Mortensen, and this movie blew me away back then. Rewatching it, I still fucking love this movie. I love it so much. And just based on the letterboxd reviews from some of my friends, not everybody loves this as much as I did. And I wonder if it's because they didn't see it when it first came out, or maybe it just doesn't hit them in the same way that it hits me. But there's so many layers to this movie that make it that just really speak to me in a real way. And for a movie, I will say that it's a very simple movie. The premise is fairly simple, and the pacing is really good. It doesn't ever feel bogged down. I think that it's extremely watchable if you've never seen it. I think that I would recommend giving it a shot. But it's a movie that I just really, really love. There's not much I can say about it without going into spoiler territory, other than how much I love it and the things that I've already said about it. So I am going to leave it at that and move on from there. But now let's talk about before we go into next week, just remember, talk to me in the comments right now. Go in and tell me what are some of your favorite non-superhero comic book movies. What do you think about the movies that I did watch? Have you seen A History of Violence? Do you also like it? Have you seen Sin City, Ghost World, A Dame to Kill For? Have you seen any of those? What do you think about those? Talk to me in the comments about that. But let's go into next week, week 22, and celebrating the 25th anniversary of one of his films being re-released back into theaters. I am covering Kevin Smith films. Now, I was going to do it earlier in the year, and I had mentioned it back in April that I was going to do it for my 420 week, but I decided to move it because I wanted to kind of pair it or do it as my review for the Dogma re-release, because I'm going to be going to see that next weekend. So I'm extremely excited about getting to go see it. It's one of my favorite Kevin Smith movies, one of my favorite movies in general. I'm very, very excited to talk about this. And Kevin Smith, if you watched some of my other episodes where I've talked about Kevin Smith, had a profound effect on who I am as a film fan. My life kind of changed when I saw Clerks, or my film life kind of changed when I saw Clerks. So he has a profound effect on it. What I'm going to do for this one, I'm going to actually cover several different phases of his life. So I'm not going to cover every Universe movie. I'm not gonna cover just the hits or anything like that. I'm going to kind of cover some of the various phases of his work. So talk to me in the comments. What is your favorite Kevin Smith movie? Will you be watching any others in preparation for this? Will you be seeing Dogma in the theater? Talk to me in the comments. Thanks.